Guys, hold on because what just surfaced in those official regulatory filings is straight up explosive. The kind of moment where the SEC themselves have pulled back the curtain and exposed how the real game in crypto has been playing out all along. And at the center of it, connecting every major dot, is XRP. This isn't some theory or rumor. It's documented proof that while retail has been watching the price action and the volatility create all this doubt and noise, institutions have been quietly building something massive with XRP right at the heart of the entire financial rewiring. Picture the shock when you realize the depth of these connections shows it's been XRP positioned perfectly for this transformation the whole time. And the timing on April 5th, 2026 makes it hit even harder after the regulatory clarity that dropped just weeks ago. This exposure changes everything we thought we knew about who's really been in control and where the future is headed. And trust me, a lot of the old narratives that tried to sideline XRP are not going to like what this reveals one bit. Before we dive deep, I want to thank every one of you for being here and supporting these breakdowns, because conversations like this are what keep the community sharp and focused on what actually matters. If you are getting value from this, do me a solid and hit that like button right now. It helps more holders see these connections. And if you are not already subscribed, join us so we can keep unpacking these catalysts together. All right, let's jump right into it, because this one is going to connect some serious dots. Disclaimer, this is not financial advice. Always do your own research and consult with qualified professionals before making any investment decisions. What we are talking about starts with Gemini's 10K filing that hit on March 31st, 2026. Buried in those pages is the full picture of a credit facility with Ripple that began back in July 2025 at up to $150 million and then got amended in December to temporarily expand to $250 million through July 1st of this year. Here's where it gets really interesting, guys. The deal is not just a plain loan. It is structured with clear requirements around RLUSD, Ripple's stablecoin issued on the XRP Ledger. Gemini has to maintain specific activity levels with RLUSD on the ledger, hold and actively use it in meaningful ways, or they face higher interest rates and penalties. Think about that for a second. This is not optional window dressing. This is infrastructure mandating real flows through the XRP Ledger. And when you sit with that for a minute, it starts to feel like the kind of behind-the-scenes move that big players make when they know the next phase is coming fast, forcing actual utility and adoption instead of just talk. This kind of requirement doesn't happen by accident. It signals that the ledger is becoming essential for real operational scale. And as someone who's been watching these patterns unfold over years in the space, I can tell you this is the type of quiet positioning that separates the noise from the real catalysts. And just to drive the point home, on the very same day the filing dropped, Gemini executed burns of 128 million RLUSD on the XRP Ledger in 2 separate transactions. That kind of activity is not random. It shows the stablecoin moving in real settlement loops tied directly to their credit card program and liquidity needs, all powered by the ledger. When you zoom out and connect this to the broader ecosystem, you start to see why XRP sits right at the heart of it. The XRP Ledger is the efficient, fast, low-cost rail that makes these institutional scale-ups possible. And RLUSD is the bridge that keeps everything compliant and liquid. Every time those mandates kick in, it drives transaction volume, burns fees, and reinforces the utility that XRP was built for from day one. Imagine the ledger humming in the background like the hidden engine room of a massive ship, while everyone on deck is focused on the waves. That's exactly what's happening here. These burns aren't just technical footnotes. They represent real economic activity being funneled through the system, creating that deflationary pressure that smart holders have always understood as one of XRP's quiet superpowers. And in a market where so many projects promise utility but deliver hype, this is the kind of tangible evidence that builds real confidence for those of us who have been in it for the long haul. Here is where the exposure hits different. For years, some voices in the space pushed narratives that tried to downplay XRP's role or paint it as sidelined, while other projects got all the hype. But these filings, and the SEC's own joint classification with the CFTC on March 17, 2026, calling XRP a digital commodity alongside Bitcoin and Ethereum, just laid it all out in black and white. That regulatory clarity was a massive, authoritative development that removed the last lingering uncertainties and opened the door wider for institutions that had been waiting on the sidelines. No more gray area. XRP is officially in the commodity category under federal law, which means exchanges can offer full services without enforcement worries. And the path for deeper adoption just got a whole lot smoother. Guys, think about how long we've waited for this kind of moment. It's like the SEC just confirmed what many of us suspected all along. The exposure here isn't just about one filing. It's about showing how the regulatory framework that once created doubt has now flipped into a green light that validates XRP's place in the ecosystem. This is the kind of development that makes the old FUD look outdated and forces everyone to reconsider what they thought they knew about where value is really flowing in this space. It connects directly to the bigger picture of institutional trust. Because when regulators draw that clear line, it removes barriers that were holding back billions in potential capital. Let's connect more dots because this is not isolated. Right around the same time as the Gemini filing, Ripple announced a strategic partnership with Convera, the global commercial payments firm formerly tied to Western Union Business Solutions. They are integrating stablecoin-enabled settlement, specifically leaning on RLUSD for cross-border flows across 140 currencies and 200 countries. Payments start and end in fiat for the businesses, but the middle layer uses the XRP Ledger and RLUSD for speed, liquidity, and reliability that traditional rails simply cannot match. This is enterprise-grade stuff happening right now, not some future promise. And when you layer in the fact that Gemini has been testing RLUSD settlements for credit card receivables with MasterCard and WebBank, you see the network effect building. Traditional finance rails on one side, digital asset efficiency on the other, and the XRP Ledger as the connective tissue. This partnership isn't a one-off deal. It's part of a pattern where legacy payment giants are realizing they need the speed and cost efficiency that only something like the XRP Ledger can deliver at scale. Think of it like upgrading from old dial-up internet to fiber optic lines. The old systems are still there, but the new rails are faster, cheaper, and more reliable. And XRP is right in the middle, making it all possible. For holders who've been through multiple cycles, this feels like the validation we've been building toward, where real-world use starts to compound and create momentum that short-term price action can't touch. Guys, think about the significance here for XRP holders who have been riding through the volatility. We have seen roughly 6 consecutive red monthly closes heading into 2026 after those 2025 highs, with the price pulling back to the 1.35 to 140 range amid broader market pressures. On the surface, it looks like defeat to the untrained eye. Retail sentiment takes a hit. Headlines focus on the drawdown, and it is easy to feel the frustration. But zoom out the way the smart money does, and this is classic compression. Institutions are not rushing in at the top. They are positioning at these levels while the infrastructure gets built in the background. Recent surveys show 18% of large institutions already hold XRP, and another 25% plan to add it this year. That is not speculation. That is data from real allocators managing billions. This compression phase is where the real test of conviction happens. It's easy to get caught up in the daily red candles and start questioning everything. But when you step back and see the infrastructure mandates like the RLUSD requirements kicking in, it becomes clear that the pressure is building for something much bigger on the other side. The kind of downward pressure we're seeing isn't random market noise. It's the setup for the release. And holders who understand that are the ones who stay calm, while others panic sell into the hands of those who see the long-term picture. The beauty of XRP's fundamentals makes this moment even more powerful. The becomes the last of fixed supply, the built-in transaction burns that create a deflationary pressure over time, the escrow mechanisms that ensure predictable releases, and the proven utility in cross-border payments, where speed and cost matter most. Contrast that with some of the more secretive or hype-driven projects out there, and you see why transparency and real-world use cases are winning the long game. The XRP Ledger has always been designed for this exact kind of institutional scale, and now the mandates in these credit deals are forcing activity directly onto it. Every RLUSD flow, every settlement, every burn is validation that the ledger is becoming the backbone. These mechanics aren't flashy like some meme-driven tokens, but they are rock solid and built for longevity. The burns especially create this slow but steady tightening effect that rewards long-term holders as usage grows. And in a world where so many assets suffer from endless inflation or unclear tokenomics, XRP stands out as the one with real engineered scarcity tied directly to actual network activity. This is the kind of design that institutions respect because it aligns incentives perfectly with usage. And right now, those incentives are being activated at scale through these very filings and partnerships. I have to say, this is absolutely phenomenal when you step back and see the historical parallels. Remember the long compression periods in previous cycles like the multi-month red streaks before those explosive moves in 2017? Streaks always end, and the longer the coil wins, the bigger the release tends to be. Right now, the downward pressure feels intense, but it is preparation, not failure. Institutions cutting these $250 million facilities do not do it for entertainment during bearish times. They do it because they have the information and the conviction that the infrastructure they are wiring up is about to carry real volume. Add in the potential for the Clarity Act moving forward in April, and the continued ETF inflows that have already pulled in over $1 billion, and the setup starts to look like one of the strongest we have seen in years. History doesn't repeat exactly, but the patterns rhyme in powerful ways. Those earlier cycles taught us that the deepest compressions often precede the most dramatic expansions. And when you overlay the current regulatory clarity and the institutional mandates we're seeing now, it feels like this coil is wound tighter than ever. The patience required here is real, but so is the potential reward for those who hold through it, with eyes on the fundamentals rather than the daily ticker. Critiquing the noise in the space is important too, because misinformation spreads fast and can shake even the most dedicated holders. Some recycled old interviews or unverified claims get amplified to create either false hope or unnecessary FUD. But when you stick to the primary sources like these SEC filings, the picture becomes crystal clear. The real story is not about short-term candles. It is about the rewiring of global finance, where XRP's efficiency, its role as a bridge asset, and the regulatory green light position it ahead of the curve. Bitcoin maxis, who dismiss anything without the same narrative, sometimes miss the point that different assets serve different purposes, and XRP's strength has always been utility over pure store of value hype. The industry talks a big game about transparency, yet these filings show the quiet moves that actually matter. It's almost ironic how the space preaches decentralization and openness, while some corners still push selective narratives that ignore proven use cases like XRPs. This exposure in the filings cuts through all that. It shows the hypocrisy in parts of the industry that hype transparency, but overlook real infrastructure being built right in front of us. For holders dealing with that noise daily, seeing these concrete developments feels like a breath of fresh air, reminding us why we got into this in the first place. Here is where it gets even more exciting when you consider the psychological side of all this. Many holders have felt that uncertainty and the pain of watching red months stack up while wondering if the thesis still holds. But the smart money behavior we are seeing tells a different tale. Whales and institutions are not panicking. They are accumulating during the coil because they understand that every compression in crypto history has preceded expansion, and the scale this time, with real enterprise mandates baked in, could be unprecedented. Global perspectives matter here too. While some regions wrestle with energy prices and macro headwinds, others are embracing blockchain rails for remittances and treasury management because the cost savings and speed are undeniable. Ripple's partnerships are tapping into that global demand right now. Psychologically, this phase tests your resolve like few others. The doubt creeps in when the price action doesn't match the fundamentals you're seeing. But that's exactly when the separation happens between those who react emotionally and those who respond with conviction based on the bigger connections. I've talked to so many holders who share that same mix of frustration and hope during these periods. And the key is always zooming out to the infrastructure story. When you do that, the red months stop feeling like failure and start looking like the necessary setup for what comes next, turning anxiety into anticipation. Let's keep layering the analysis because these connections run deep. The XRP Ledger's recent activity spikes tied to RLUSD burns and settlements are not isolated events. They are symptoms of the larger shift where traditional banks and payment giants are no longer fighting crypto. They are integrating it. Bank of America and JP Morgan have long-standing ties in the ecosystem, and with more crypto firms earning banking charters and treasury systems opening APIs to digital assets, the highway between fiat and crypto is being built with XRP rails in mind. Real-world asset tokenization projections hitting trillions only accelerate this because settlement needs efficiency, and nothing beats the XRP Ledger for that. This integration isn't happening overnight, but the filings and partnerships show the momentum building steadily. Each new connection strengthens the network effect, making XRP more indispensable as volumes grow. It's like watching a spiderweb form in real time, with each strand reinforcing the others until the whole structure can support massive weight. That's the transformation we're witnessing, and it positions XRP holders uniquely ahead because we've been watching these strands connect, while others were distracted by short-term hype elsewhere. As we move through this analysis, remember that short-term chaos is just background noise compared to the big catalysts ahead. The market volatility we have seen is like sound waves before the main event clap. The real boom comes when these infrastructure pieces go live at scale. When RLUSD mandates drive consistent ledger usage, when more institutions follow the 25% who are already planning allocations, and when the full weight of regulatory clarity meets actual adoption, XRP holders who stay patient through this phase are the ones who will be positioned ahead of the curve when the expansion phase kicks in. That sound wave analogy really hits home because the daily volatility can feel deafening, but once the main catalyst event lands, everything shifts in a single powerful moment. We've seen it before in cycles past, and with the current setup of regulatory wins plus enterprise mandates, this one has the potential to be even more impactful. The patience isn't passive waiting, it's active understanding of why these developments matter and how they compound over time. I want to pause here and say how reassuring it is to see these developments play out, because they validate what many of us have believed for a long time. The space has had its share of hypocrisy, where some projects promise the world but deliver opacity, while XRP quietly delivers the utility that institutions actually need. That contrast is becoming impossible to ignore. And for newer holders, or those feeling the pressure of recent price action, know that this is the exact environment where wealth transfers happen, from the impatient to the correctly positioned. Every red candle that shakes out weak hands is an opportunity for those who see the infrastructure being built. It's reassuring on a deep level because it reminds us that the thesis was never about quick flips. It was always about solving real problems in global finance. And these filings prove the solving is well underway. For anyone who's felt isolated in their conviction during the tougher stretches, moments like this reconnect you to the bigger community and the shared vision that got us all here. Looking forward, the narrative arc feels inevitable. We are witnessing the dawn of institutional-era crypto, where XRP is not just along for the ride, it is driving key parts of the vehicle, with swell events on the horizon featuring heavyweights from banking, tech, and even policy circles. The momentum is only building. The fixed supply, the burns that tighten the tokenomics over time, the escrow that provides predictability, all of these mechanics are now backed by real regulatory certainty and enterprise demand. That is a powerful combination. The inevitability comes from how these pieces fit together so cleanly. Regulatory clarity removes friction, partnerships provide the on-ramps, and the ledger's native features deliver the efficiency that traditional systems have been missing. As more policy conversations happen at events like Swell, expect the conversation to shift even further toward practical adoption rather than speculation. And XRP is perfectly placed to benefit from that shift. Guys, as we wrap this up, I want to leave you with a bigger vision, because this is not just about price speculation, it is about transformation. The financial system is being rewired from the inside out, and XRP's role in enabling fast, cheap, transparent cross-border value transfer is becoming more central every quarter. The filings we just dissected, the commodity classification, the partnerships like Convera, the RLUSD activity on the ledger, they all point to the same conclusion. The groundwork has been laid, the coil is wound tight, and the release phase is what comes next. Those of you who have held through the noise, who have seen past the headlines to the fundamentals, you are on the right side of this shift. This exposure through the SEC filings isn't the end of the story. It's the confirmation that turns doubt into conviction and positions the entire community for what's ahead. The transformation isn't abstract. It's happening in real time through credit facilities, burns, settlements, and global partnerships that are making XRP the quiet engine of change. The future in this space belongs to the assets that solve real problems at scale, and XRP has been doing that quietly while the world catches up. So keep watching these developments, keep connecting the dots, and stay optimistic, because what is being exposed here is not just a credit deal or a filing. It is the confirmation that XRP has been the key all along. Drop your thoughts in the comments below. What part of these connections stands out most to you? Are you seeing the same institutional positioning I am? Let's keep the conversation going, because together we stay ahead. Thanks again for watching. Hit that like and subscribe if this helped, and I will see you in the next one where we continue unpacking what is next. This is just the beginning of something truly special. The exposure we've unpacked today is the kind that sticks with you because it reframes everything. It shows that while the market can feel chaotic and unpredictable on the surface, the underlying infrastructure is solidifying in ways that favor those who stayed focused on the real utility. For every holder out there feeling the weight of recent months, remember that these moments of compression have always been the prelude to the most rewarding expansions. The dots we've connected here aren't random. They're part of a deliberate shift that's been years in the making. And now, with the SEC's own actions highlighting XRP's role so clearly, the path forward looks clearer than ever. Stay engaged, stay informed, and most importantly, stay optimistic, because the best chapters for XRP and this community are still unfolding right in front of us.